Patrick. Oh, I got you. So, hey buddy, have I ever told you how much I love your smile? It's a Monday. I gotta start the day off letting you know I love your smile. Also, I know how you got your smile. I know you got yourself hooked up with a free Sonicare toothbrush from our friends over at Green Mountain Dental. They're taking care of us. They're taking care of you. Located over there in Lakewood, they are the best damn family-owned dentist in the metro. They're extreme Colorado sports fans just like us. And if you schedule an x-ray cleaning or exam today, they will hook you up with a free Sonicare toothbrush. Make sure you tag them and us when you go there. Show them that you're showing this community some support. You're showing us some support. Everybody involved wins when you go just 15 minutes from downtown Denver and check out our friends at Green Mountain Dental. Get yourself hooked up with that free Sonicare toothbrush.
And go in the air, deep right center field. Two-run home run, Trevor Story. Way back, Myers. Watch it go out. Chuck Neff.
All right, welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR20 and you will get 20% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I am the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is our beat writer, Patrick Lyons, and we have got much to discuss on today's show. We're hoping to, if we've got time, introduce a new fun game we're going to start playing here where we look into the past and try to remember some ball players from years gone by. We're going to do a little bit more of the Memorabilia Minute. Those of you that saw that on the debut got to see Patrick present some very, very interesting items he's gotten recently. I'm going to reach into my, not way back, but a little farther back file and show you something interesting. But before all of that, of course, we have got to get into the latest and certainly not greatest. No, that's not been on the table for a while, but the latest in the ongoing negotiations between MLB owners and the MLBPA Players Association. And it may even be the case that news breaks as we're having this conversation here. We're expected to hear from the players who are voting right now on the most recent proposal, and there's been some conversation about whether or not Rob Manfred, the commissioner, is going to come out and speak. Patrick, I'll get you in here in a minute, but let's just get people up to date on the most recent. And I'm just going from Jim Bowden on Twitter tweeting out that this is essentially what the players are voting on now. A 60-game, full prorated salaried season. No salary guarantee in the event that games are not played. A $25 million minimum playoff pool for 2020. This rule is so weird to me. If fewer than 50 games are played, then 2021 extends playoffs and the DH is removed. Okay. I'm not fully sure I understand that. I'm sure there's a reason for that, but I don't know what it is yet. And then you've got no additional salary relief. There had been some talk of how much beyond what's being negotiated here should be allocated toward the players who basically have nothing. And then the final thing being no modifications to qualifying offers. And of course, that's a big conversation about what do we do with certain contract stipulations now that this is throwing everything completely out of whack. And it sounds like the players may have an opportunity to just leave that, which is a benefit to them. But there's a lot to unpack here, Patrick. What is sort of your top line reaction here?
I think we're definitely getting closer towards having some kind of an agreement, which is, should make us feel positive. but unfortunately, with the climate, there's also was news over the weekend that about 40 different players had tested positive for COVID-19, mainly in Florida, and the Phillies and the Toronto Blue Jays. They closed up their facilities. Major League Baseball said that all of the teams in Arizona and Florida, the Cactus and Grapefruit Leagues, they will no longer be training there and will now, push up north to the team's major league facilities. So,
Right.
If they give the thumbs up, that's great. And then at that point, we're really, we don't have any agreement with this virus, unfortunately. So, I do hope that we can get past this hurdle here. And it seems like things are, a lot closer. And there could even be some interesting details within there that haven't really been addressed in Bowden's tweet. I know the players kind of shot back and said that players who are compromised, their immune is compromised, they can sit out, and of course they would either can take the money, or they can take the year of service time. And it's kind of been amended because players like Mike Trout and Garrett Cole, their wives are both pregnant. So
Right.
they've kind of amended it to say, hey, if somebody in your immediate family, could be compromised by something like this, then you also have the option, but you would not be paid and you would not receive service time. So that could, be another wrinkle within all of this that could really, kind of upend this thing a bit. But hopefully the news that comes out shortly, the players have, agreed to this. I think it's a good deal. I know it may be a leg up for the owners in a sense because of some of the things that may be pulled away for the 2021 season, like the universal DH and extended playoffs. But it may be the last chance for something like this to finally go down.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate aspect of the way this has been played from the owners by the beginning, and why from the beginning I should say, and why they've always had more leverage was because, well, you can't go backwards in time, and the further we get into the year, the fewer games are going to be played no matter what. Because I do think that the biggest sticking point here for the players, especially if this had been proposed a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, would have been that 60 games is just not enough. Now they may just be forced into having to accept this, and I know they would still rather play more games than that. And yes, part of that is because if you're getting full prorated salaries, then that means 10 more games means 10 more days of getting paid. And that's why there's been this big fight over the number of games, since the owners basically decided, yeah, we already promised you prorated salaries. We can't go back on that. That's what the fight has been over. And so, in a way, like, I'll be frustrated because it'll seem like, the owners have just forced a win for their hand. But at the same time, I'll be happy because baseball will come back. We'll get something. I do think there are wins in here for the players that, it's easy for me to say I can accept. As somebody who's very clearly been way more on that side than the other, the number of games is frustrating. It's frustrating for us all. But 60 games of baseball is better than 0 games of baseball. And like you said, the other point is, and I've tried to do this too, it kind of separate the two things of, like, they need a framework to play, and then there's this the corona stuff. Then there's the whole COVID problem, right? And it almost seems like the sooner they get back out there and play, the sooner there can be some baseball before we know whatever second wave there's going to be, or there could be another potential shutdown or whatever it is, right? Like, so on that level, it's just like those two things are separate. At the same time, time is of the essence. They need to figure this out relatively soon. I hope the players have proved their point. I hope people have realized, and if they need to come back around, sadly, next time and make their point again, I think they will. But this may be a deal they just have to accept.
And the owners are getting what they want because, this should have been all worked out by June 1st. And, the players wanted an X amount of games and owners wanted, many less than that. And because this negotiation has now reached the culmination of 3 full weeks, well, in a way, the owners have gotten what they wanted. I think, there are some statistics being, knocked around that there would be, for a 60-game season, they would only have 66 days to do that, which means players are getting an off day every 9 days, which, according to their, agreement is kind of null and void. You can't have that. So, if they do pass this and they do vote in favor, I know that, the no earlier than June 29th would be the start of that spring training 2.0, and that the season would start on or around, July 19th. Like that was what the last proposals going back and forth said. So, and ultimately, Manfred has the ability to just mandate a season of 54 or 60 games too. So there's this other element to it that I think that's the negotiating in the public that MLB doesn't really want to mess with and do it and say, well, the commissioner is the one who said this. Well, no. If we can get an agreement from the Players Association, both sides have agreed to it, and you can then point the fingers and what have you. But if it's the commissioner saying 60, well, then the commissioner said 60, not the commissioner and the Players Association. It's just him, and anything bad that happens because of it is because of him. So I think the owners are finally realizing that now. Like when Manfred goes out on day one of the draft and says there will 100% be a season, and then immediately has to turn around and say, yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know that we're going to do that at all. And you realize, like, you can't have it both ways. You can't have the leverage and then also win this battle in the public. You can't really do those things. So, choose wisely.
Yeah, and that I think could be the biggest reason if the players reject it. I think it will be for the sake of their own leverage in that instance. Like you were just saying, basically forcing because the owners have forced the players into this situation where all they can do is either say yes to this or let Manfred implement it on his own. Doing the second thing there, letting Manfred implement it on his own, puts all of the responsibility on him and the owners for the situation, and it's something that I think they would do. So it wouldn't surprise me if here in the next little bit that we hear one of those two things has happened, that either the players have accepted the deal, which I think grants them a certain amount of leverage to say, hey, look, we all came together, now don't be mad at us, now no one, we did the thing. But I do think that they gain more leverage if they go the other way. They reject the deal because they say, look, this was negotiated the entire time with our hands tied behind our backs, and you're going to do this anyway. This is going to be what the season looks like if Rob Manfred implements it on his own anyway. So the players are almost saying, we're not going to take responsibility for how this turned out. But I think either way, they're going to play some baseball. They're at least going to try to get out there, but we don't know what happens health-wise. But they're going to tell us an announcement of a certain number of games and a start date for spring training and the season, probably here pretty soon. I would expect.
Yeah, and then from there, that 3-week slog, give or take, from the start of spring training 2.0 to the start of the season, it'll be like every day, a piece of news could come out, and that really is somewhat damning, and we say, we might not even start the season. Because that's where baseball has the disadvantage on the other sports, in that, the other seasons have played. Like, the NFL hasn't been impacted at all by this, ultimately, right? They haven't had to cancel any games. NHL got in part of their season. NBA got in part of their season. And in the grand scheme of things, a year from now, we could be almost under the same exact situation, and then it's like, okay, everyone pretty much lost the same amount. But right now, it seems like baseball has been on the short end to a degree, right? And it'll just be a wait and see matter at that point. But we still got to get past this first hurdle and try to maybe win some fans back. I know that Griffey documentary last night got some people intrigued. So hopefully the players will come out and give it a thumbs up. Everyone can kind of just shake hands, go their separate ways, be smiling, and we may start to see more video coming out of guys practicing at Coors Field, the crack of the bat, and we start to feel better about the sport we love so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be cracking back, by the way, with some Breck brews and some farmhouse food. Absolutely, from our friends over at the Breckenridge Brewery Farmhouse. You can get delicious food, even more deliciouser beer. I'm pretty sure that's a technical term. They're from the farmhouse, and you can save $5 if you use the code DNVR. They are open for pickup from noon to 8 p.m. If you call 303-803-1380, tell them Drew and Patrick sent you down there for some delicious barbecue, some wings, some burgers, whatever it is, and a 15-can sampler of your choice. I've been on that Mile High Copper Lager kick lately. It's really been doing it for me in this warmer weather as I sit out with the dogs in the backyard in the sun. That's basically the sun I'm getting these days. But that Mile High Copper Lager, just the perfect companion for that. And we will be awaiting, hopefully, some positive news out of the world of baseball here very soon. And Will makes a fantastic point here, saying that a 60-game season would be the easiest road to winning a championship the Rockies may likely ever have. And you know what? I will say this. This is often the case with the Rockies. I try to make this point as often as I can because they're in an extreme environment. And so what is often the case is that things that can be true of given certain things will be extremely true for the Rockies. So actually, a 60-game season is a big advantage for any team that isn't super stacked with resources. It's a big advantage for all of the less likely to win teams. It just is. But it is more of an advantage for the Rockies because of the Coors Field hangover effect, the limits for that kind of stuff to take over. To be a problem, even if you look at like the division they're inside of, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, there's a lot of teams right now saying to themselves, a 60-game season is our best chance ever. It's also just slightly more true for the Rockies than it is for some of those other teams because of the extra things that come with Coors Field.
And suppose this, when players are coming into Coors Field, they haven't, been in their rhythms of hydrating well and doing this, that, and the other. So I think that could benefit Colorado more this season than any other because guys are kind of out of those routines. They're just trying to start up with all of those things, and they could easily lose sight of that. I think Rockies players, they know what they're dealing with. They could be at a disadvantage too because they're jumping in the middle of the summer on the hottest days of the year in Denver.
True.
And so you go, wow, you're going from spring training to, these extreme conditions. But I think they will adapt better than anyone who comes in to visit. Sure, it'll be 3 or 4 days for the road team, but I think Colorado, would benefit from that. They would be able to deal with those things much more professionally than, a road team. One thing I did last year with a lot of the teams when I would go into the visiting clubhouse, especially to the young guys, I'd say, what have you heard about Coors Field? And, what have some of the veteran players tipped you off to? And there's, they're telling me to hydrate. Like, that's like a big deal, and sometimes you have to live to learn. And you go, all right, well, my first 2 years, I was 3 for 25 combined at Coors Field, and everyone talks about, oh man, it's a hitter's haven, and I should be padding my stats, but I have not been feeling well. I went out, I wanted to see Denver, and went out with some friends, and shoot, that was a real mistake. So depending on what the roster is comprised of, you could have a couple young guys maybe making those poor choices, not knowing what's ahead of them, and all right, there's a couple extra wins that go Colorado's way, and those couple extra wins are really going to be worth 3 times as much as they would normally be. That's a 6 or 7 game swing right there just because of the extreme environment that they play in.
Totally. And another thing we've talked about on this podcast a lot is the odd balance of the Rockies. Like you could be the biggest Rockies hater in the world, and some of those people are also Rockies fans, which is fun and interesting. But the biggest non-believer in their ability to compete in a normal season coming into this year, looking at the roster or whatever. But even you would have to recognize that compared to whatever other teams you think are bad in the game of baseball, Baltimore Orioles, the Seattle Mariners, the Reds are improving. I don't know if you put the Miami Marlins are a team you would put in that category. The Tigers and Sox have gone out and done some things, but still, they don't have the star talent that the Rockies do. We've talked about that. They don't have Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, Charlie Blackmon, these guys who can win you a game. Now, over the course of 162, that gets mitigated. The number of times your 3 or 4 star position players can just win you a baseball game. But in 60, those games stand out a lot more. The ability, particularly of those 3 guys in the clutch, Nolan, Trevor, and Charlie, who've been extraordinary in those close ball game moments, that could be huge. And Will's saying it's 12 starts for a 5-man rotation plus a few postseason games. So Marquez or Gray could both pull out a 13-3 run. Yeah, in 16 games, you tell these 27. Remember, John Gray's the old man of this rotation at 27 years old, and his biggest issue by far in his career, I didn't even know we were going to talk about this. I'm excited down today. This is great. Has been his stamina, has been maintaining his body weight, maintaining his strength, and being able to be consistent. You give John Gray and Germán Marquez like a 2-month sprint. I'm very, very excited to see what those guys could do.
You brought up an interesting point about the Rockies having 3 stars, right? And it got me to thinking that baseball will never be a 1-star game changer league. It's just not the way. I think football obviously is very much a team game, but all it takes is one guy to be dominant enough to make everybody around him that much better. NBA, of course, we see that. But with the trio of Arenado, Story, and Blackmon combined, those guys have 11 All-Star appearances.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what the best is by any other trifecta of guys, but there might not be too many teams that have 3 guys that have at least had multiple All-Star appearances do that, right? So obviously, you could have a guy like Miguel Cabrera, and you go, all right, well, he's got probably about 9 or 10, and then all you need is, it doesn't even matter right there. All you need is one guy to have 1 All-Star appearance. Cameron Maben maybe made it once when he was with the Marlins in his early days, and your third guy has no All-Star appearances. Hey, that's all that ties the Rockies with 11. No, but if you actually look at guys who have been there, that could be a big advantage, at least more than other seasons. Again, Nolan Arenado is not going to win a game all by himself consistently on a night in, night out basis. As great of offensive games that he's had a pitcher to go ahead and shove against the other team or minimize the damage, and the bullpen comes in. So even when you look at something like that, it's not just one player who's dominating. But if you can have 3 of those players stacked together like the Rockies do, that little bit of a difference could help. Now you've got 2 guys doing it, and maybe doing it, on a more frequent basis. So throwing David Dahl into the mix too, had 2020 played out a little bit better, you could have 4 position players that had multiple All-Star game appearances. So, Will's right. Things are stacking up. Every team can say that in a shortened season. You've got a smaller sample size, so it could take anything to get good, and depending on what kind of trade deadline we get, you make a couple moves what you wouldn't have normally, right? Because you're not going to start making a trade until game 90, 95, whatever it is. Now, you have a good 35-game run. That's the first week in May, ultimately. And now we're saying, hey, it's game 36. Let's pull the trigger on that deal and make a deal. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. I'll throw a little cold water on it before we get into our next topic and say there is one flip side to it that I just realized. Depending on how you feel about the Rockies bullpen, I think they've got the pieces to be fine, especially if they're not going to be stretched thin in a longer season. But if you are of the mind that the bullpen is officially and literally a dumpster fire, which is what it was for most of last season, to be fair, then that's twice as bad in a season like this. If they're going to be bad, then it's going to cost them that much more. Then a bad bullpen will be twice as unbearable in a shortened 2020 campaign. So
one benefit
Wade Davis's turnaround is that much more important for this team now.
No, you're very much right. The only caveat to that is there's some semblance of hope in the sense that with expanded rosters, that means with 30 guys on the bench, maybe 35, and the 40-man roster maybe becoming 50 or 60. We don't have those details yet. You now have more guys that you can go to say, so and so is not getting it done. So boom, we're gonna bring this other guy in right now. You don't know when to cut the cord, right? How many appearances, how many times does a guy do it where you go, we just know we can't count on it, or we can't afford to count on it. So by the time you do something like that, it could be too late. But they are gonna have that option, and they've got plenty of young guys who have. Their numbers might not be terribly flashy, but they've played in those volatile ballparks coming up all through the minor leagues. So, again, all it takes is one or two guys. You catch lightning in a bottle, and next thing you know, Ryan Rollison's your eighth inning guy, making the bridge to Scott Oberg, and Colorado Rockies have just won their first NL West pennant.
There you go. Heard it here first. Book it, folks. So we'll let you know if any news comes across the wire. Hopefully some will. I do want to move into sharing something very special and near and dear to my heart with all of you, but something that's more recent and special and near and dear to my heart is also the official sponsor of DNVR Gaming, and those are our friends over at WGT Golf, the most popular and beloved golf game in the world, loved by more than 20 million players around the world, including the two of us. You can play from the comfort of your couch or anywhere on the go. You can play on your laptop, on your phone, closest to the hole or full stroke play, all kinds of world-famous golf courses, including Pebble Beach, Bethpage Black, St. Andrews, Wolf Creek, and more. You can challenge any number of us in the DNVR community, including all of us on staff. We've got bi-weekly, semi-weekly. That term is always a little bit confusing. Every other week tournaments. On Sundays, we have opens and majors and all kinds of fun stuff that you can get involved with, talk a little trash, have a little fun. I use it to relax. I just like whacking the golf ball around, and if it goes in the water, it goes in the water. There's a certain satisfying element to that too. Just Happy Gilmoreing it out there and just whack away at the thing. Whatever you do, however you choose to enjoy it, I do highly recommend you download WGT Golf today over at DNVRGolf.com. It is a whole lot of fun. Yeah, there it is.
See what you did there, a whole lot of fun.
Whole lot of fun. That's good stuff. So we're going to move now into a new segment that we're doing, and we're working on getting a graphic. And of course, by we, I mean Eric D-Line is working on a graphic for us here. For our memorabilia minute, we want to show off some of our favorite pieces of baseball memorabilia, whether they be new or old, and we're hoping to have guests come on and share their favorite pieces of memorabilia with us, and hopefully some of you out there listening to this before too long. We're going to start having probably next Wednesday more interactive show for you, so be on the lookout for that. We'll plug it a bit more heavily once we're feeling confident that next Wednesday is the day, but we're like 90%. So get ready for next Wednesday to be a big day for us.
For our subscribers in the Discord chat rooms, if you poke us enough, we might give you some of the hints. So again, our subscribers in Discord, go ahead, and that's also where we're going to go ahead and maybe take some of the participants in some of the games that we do play coming up. So keep your eyes peeled for that in the coming week.
Exactly right. And so the next couple things we're going to do here, some examples of some things some of y'all could join us to do for now. I get to play because it's my show and I want to play. So first, I've got this piece of memorabilia. It was actually the first thing I grabbed when Patrick and I were talking about doing this as a segment. And it's a really cool thing. We found this kind of recently, unearthing some stuff. And it is a Grand Junction Rockies program from 2013. You can see right there. Game day. Young John Gray right there. Raimel Tapia over there on the other side. Now, there are a few things about this, and I need to make one clarification so that I literally don't get in any trouble for this. I got this my first year writing about the Rockies at all, and I was not a credentialed member of the media yet. If I was, this would be highly inappropriate that I got this signed, and it's not something. In fact, this is the only collection of signatures I have at all from anybody inside the Colorado Rockies organization. Obviously, I will never, ever sell this. That's not what it was for. This was to commemorate my first summer of 2013 being literally out with a yellow notepad and a pen in hand, talking to these young ball players and scribbling down some notes. And so
so ultimately, you were going to the game as a fan and hoping your fandom would transition to an article for a blog. And so ultimately, you were just a fan trying to be a journalist.
I mean, I was writing for Purple Row at the time, but it was, I had just gotten my foot in the door. Just total fan blog. I didn't have a pass. I had no credential, nothing like that. I literally just walked in and was like, is it okay if I walk? And it's very, as you've now learned, it can be very casual down at the minor leagues, and it can be relatively easy to approach the players as a fan. And so, I was down there writing for Purple Row. So I knew I was going to write stuff and put some articles up for them, but I had no experience having done this before. My first time ever interviewing a baseball player. It
and
was
uncredentialed, ultimately.
Yeah, totally uncredentialed. Because it literally, and if you're wondering, like, why, it literally says on the back of our credentials, you do not get autographs from players. So that's a thing I would come to learn later, that this is very much taboo. So it's the reason why we're
and you didn't know at the time because you were uncredentialed.
No idea, right? Because I'd never seen a credential before. And so there are a couple little, there's John Gray's on there. The pitching coach at the time, Bob Apodaca, was out there. Obviously Tapia. You can see in these old ones, they put, they've got all the players in there, and you can see, I think it's on this page, couple of young guys there, Ryan McMahon and Dom Nunez on that team, both big leaguers now. Just a little memento from that first season out in Grand Junction.
The thing that stood out immediately when you showed me that was the quality, because I've again gone to numerous minor league games, and a lot of teams will ultimately opt to give away a program that is much smaller. It's almost like the old school TV guide size, magazine, and you just give it away. Hey, it's got all the advertisements in it, because if you don't sell a program, that is money that is lost. Like you wasted that money to print it up, then it just sits in a box somewhere. Whereas if you give it out, now it's a little bit more, fan engagement, and encourages fans to keep score and things of that nature. So that was a large, full, magazine. Great quality. It's got all the pictures in there, and I going to Sky Sox games, 90s and during the 2000s even. I don't even think they had anything that was as quality as that. So, kudos to the Monforts who own the Grand Junction Rockies. They, I think they moved there after the 2011 season, or it was the 2011 season where they were the Casper Ghosts. Moved to Grand Junction. And, the rest is history as far as they go.
There's a lot of fun and interesting stuff in here. Some of the names of the guys that made it, obviously, you know most of them. A lot of the ones who came close. They have the 2012 Pioneer League All Stars, the ones from the year before the inaugural, and it was Scott Oberg, David Dahl, and Eddie Butler.
Wow.
Young David Dahl. There's
So what you're
Scotty
saying
O.
is, if you make the All-Star team in the Pioneer League and you still have 4 levels to go in the minors, you're a lock to make it in the majors.
Lock.
A lock.
A lock.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good find when we were looking.
Did you keep score for that game?
I
Well, you were taking
covered
notes.
a bunch of So I covered a bunch of games that year for the Grand Junction team, and I know they made it to the postseason, and I wasn't there for that. I think they maybe got through the first round and then lost in the second. I can't. And their postseason's really weird down there too, because they do like the first half of the season, and the second half of the season champions. But they had also like graduated a bunch of guys or whatever. But I remember being there at the end of the year, and it was there was just a special feeling about that group of players. I'm sure Carlos Estevez would give me a hard time for the fact that I didn't grab his autograph. I was asking him to translate for guys to bring him over to. He made it to the bigs. He was on that team. But yeah, they were a really good ball club, especially for a rookie level team. You could see a lot of talent out there, and a lot of those guys have made it and are still trying to prove their thing, do the next step. It was an extraordinarily talented group.
And they continued to go on to win, because I think it was that next year they won in Asheville, the South Atlantic League.
Right.
And, depending on which guys you look at, they contributed to a wild card berth in 2017. They won the wild card game in 2018 to go into the NLDS. So, the Rockies, ultimately, they don't value winning per se. They value development over winning. But, some organizations think, hey, if you can win at the lower levels, that, kind of instills a certain value in the point, as far as winning a game and doing everything that it takes and not worrying about your development and worry about the whole team aspect and how that can carry into the majors. And kind of that 2013 Grand Junction Rockies that you shared with us, they're doing that right now for the big league, major league Colorado Rockies.
There was a big coalescing there that next season where some older guys came into the organization, some guys who had been in. For David Dahl, it was an injury, so he needed a repeat at Asheville just to make sure he was ready to get bumped up. For Kyle Freeland, it was the other way around. He had got drafted and he gone quick through Grand Junction. So a lot of talent just sort of centered very quickly in Asheville in 2014 with Raimel Tapia and Ryan McMahon and John Gray and those guys from the year before. Although I think Gray had moved on by that one. I think he was long gone. He was the one guy from that 13 team who moved just so quickly he went past all of them. But Tapia, McMahon, Dahl, Freeland, Antonio Senzatella they made sure was on that team. Carlos Estevez was on that team. I think Pat Valleca was on that team. A lot of contributions from those guys that ended up winning the championship in 2014 with Asheville. And then a lot of those guys would go on to be, the first members of the Yard Goats and deal with that whole every game on the road, no home games, weird season that they did with the Yard Goats. And then, are now trying to prove what they're worth here with the Colorado Rockies, and it's going to be fun to see what they do over these next couple of years.
Yeah, you also had Jordan Patterson, who was on that 2013 team.
My guy.
For the Grand Junction Rockies, and you had Jose Briseño, who was a catcher, still is a catcher, and he's since made his debut with the Angels, went over to their organization. And then a guy by the name of Joel Payamps, who was 19 at the time. I'm not sure how he left the organization, but he ultimately made his debut last year with the Diamondbacks at the age of 25.
I remember when they brought him out, I was like, whoa, no kidding. Payamps? vaguely recall him. Briseño, I remember getting traded to the Braves. I remember Jose Briseño hitting a couple of like tennis racket home runs. Just like, holy crap. Strong kid. Not a great catcher to my recollection, but he was big, strong kid. Yep. A few other just personal favorites from that team. Zach Gemiola was my first interview ever. Great guy. Good pitcher, man. Just, he got up to AAA. Had some hard time staying healthy a couple of times. Didn't quite work out for him. A very similar story with Correll Prime. Great guy. Great big guy. And overcame some obstacles of, baseball not being his most natural sport and turned himself into a pretty good hitter, but never fully materialized. Or we should say hasn't yet. You never know with these guys. The game tells you eventually when you've got to give it up. I don't know that either of those guys have officially retired, but I don't think they're actively in the game right now. But great guys, and that was a fun team. It was a really fun team in Grand Junction. So now we move into a new fun game. And by the way, as we do this, if you like new fun games, get into rugby. Rugby is not new, but it's new. It might be new to you. It's new to me. Despite the fact that my dad played rugby, I never understood it. I still don't fully, but I'm starting to get the hang of it. And one of the reasons why is because I have got the support of our guy Colton Strickler over there at DNVR Raptors. You should check out the DNVR Raptors podcast as soon as you're done listening to this. If you've got any interest in learning about rugby, learning a new sport, they might have rugby this year and there might not be any baseball. So this may be the time to get in on it. We've also been having DNVR watches. You can use that hashtag DNVR watches parties a lot of times on Saturday and Sunday. I don't think we have any coming up right now, but be on the lookout for them for the DNVR Raptors games. It's a good time to watch some old games. You can learn a lot about the sport. And again, Colton's got those 101 pods. He's got interviews with the players, really in-depth stuff. He's got a lot of access down there. So if you want a new team to root for, you want new cool colors to wear, some dope merch that you can go and buy, a team you can support and root for, and a sport that maybe comes with slightly less complications than you're feeling about this one right now, I highly recommend checking out rugby, the DNVR Raptors podcast with Colton Strickler, and our friends, the Colorado Raptors, who are built like trucks and a lot of fun to watch do that rugby. All right. I'm going to wrap up today's show, unless we have to go long because news breaks. And if real news breaks, we'll find a way to come back and talk with you for a bit if something goes down here this evening. But we want to start a new game. And again, Eric, hard at work already on graphics. We're going to make these things fun and interactive for everybody to do, and hopefully I don't embarrass myself and we scare people off here on this first one, Patrick. And
folks can participate at home.
That's right.
Folks can participate at home on this one. So
I'll hide the chat so I'm not cheating. I won't look at the chat. I've hid it. I've got our private chat up so I won't see public chat. If you want to play the game, working title on the name. That's one thing I realize is that remember the game is, we'll see.
It's vague. What does that mean? What are we remembering?
No. If you've got an idea.
Name the game. The game. Okay, maybe. Maybe I have a better idea. Remember the game sounds better. Name the game might give you more of an inkling as to what it is.
But if you're wondering what it is, what we're going to do is we're going to take some games from Rockies history. Some of them will be notable. Some of them may just be some games. And we're going to challenge the player, in this case, me, to name as many participants in that game as they can. And hopefully we can add certain stakes and over-unders and all of that to it. I think Patrick's got an over-under here for us today, so we'll, that'll be based on his assessment of what I really should be able to get here. So it'll go like this. Patrick's about to give me a game. I'm going to try to name as many people as I can who played in that game. I've got 3 times to say a name of somebody that didn't play in the game.
In other words, 3 outs. If you name a guy who, Drew, that guy never played for the Rockies and he never played for the other team. That was an awful guess. Game's not over. You get 3 bad guesses.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
3 strikes, you're out, or 3 outs to end an inning. I don't know. I'm just spitballing this on the fly. There's no real reason why we selected 3, other than the fact that there are multiple reasons why we selected
All of
3.
the reasons. You'll notice themes as we start introducing these, and numbers in baseball are important. So, Patrick, what do you got?
So, I will tell you the game, then I'll set the over-under. The game is October 24th, 2007. Game 1 of the 2007 World Series between the Colorado Rockies at the Boston Red Sox. The game was played at Fenway Park. 36,733 were in attendance for this game. The first World Series game in Boston since, 2004. The national anthem wasn't sung. It was actually arranged by the great composer John Williams.
Oh,
He arranged it specifically for Game 1. It was played by the Boston Pops. Now, there were 30 players who featured in this game total. 21 hitters, 9 pitchers. And I have set and there are 2, I'm not going to say this part yet. We'll work that kinks out. But I'm going to set the over-under since I feel like Drew will be able to name most of the Rockies players. I'm going to set the over-under a little high, but I think you can go over. I got confidence in you is what I'm saying.
All right.
The over-under is 13.5.
Oh.
I got confidence that you can name the entire Rockies lineup right there. That would be 9 guys.
Yep.
That would be 9 guys. You might be able to get the starting pitcher. Maybe you jostle over to the Boston side of things. But ultimately, 30 players were featured in Game 1 of the 2007 World Series between the Rockies and Red Sox. And Drew is looking to try to name 14 or more. The over-under is 13.5. If he gets one wrong, that will be an out. And he gets 3 of those before game is over.
All right. Okay.
So, Drew, are you ready to remember the game?
I'm ready. Here we go. I'm going to try to start with the easy ones.
That's how you do it.
I think that's going to be, we're going to see that's the way to play this. Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Matt Holliday.
Good.
I'm going to go with Brad Hopp.
Still good.
I'm going to go, I think I know who was playing center, but before I get an out, I just want to feel good about some stuff. So I'm going to go around the infield now and say Garrett Atkins. There we go. Troy Tulowitzki. Kazuo Matsui. Todd Helton. And Yorvit Torrealba. Woo! Okay.
Making you wait there.
Jeff Francis was on the hill. Jeff Francis.
Going immediately to the starting pitcher.
Okay.
You're correct.
Okay, I'm going to say that playing center field for the Rockies was Willie Taveras.
Willie Taveras. That's correct.
Okay, all right.
So that gives you 8 in the starting lineup and the starting pitcher, so you are currently at 9. You're currently at 9. You still have all 3 of your outs. You need 4 more to hit the over.
So the easy Boston guys are Manny and Poppy. Okay.
Got them both. You're at 11.
I'm going to say that Josh Beckett
Was the starter?
was their starting pitcher. Well, he wouldn't have played any other position. So if he played in the game, I'm at a reach on that one.
You got it.
Oh, let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, all right. Okay.
You're now at 12 with still 3 outs to go.
I'm going to say catching for the Red Sox was Jason Varitek. Okay.
Very nice.
At third base, Mike Lowell.
Mike Lowell at third base. That's correct.
Let's go. What that gives me? Am I at 13? Am I right at?
That gives you 13, yes. No, it gives you 14. You got it.
Okay, I won.
There you go.
I wonder how many others
I knew you
could
could
name.
get those guys.
Mike Lowell was the one that took me the longest to remember, and honestly, I'm starting to dry up on their position players after that. It was Pedroia very young at second base.
Dustin Pedroia at second base. You would be correct.
Okay. Who would have been their shortstop? Oh, was it Alex Gonzalez?
Alex Gonzalez. Swing and a miss.
Swing and a miss. Ah. And then I'm blanking on their outfield, other than Manny, obviously, and left. And then Papelbon, I know, was on that team, but I doubt he had to pitch in that game because the Rockies got waxed.
So are you tapping out? Are we just talking now?
Well, yeah. I mean,
you won.
I guess because I won, but I wanted to see if I could get a few more.
All right. So give me an official guess. Do you have an official guess?
I'm gonna say Papelbon did not pitch in that game.
Okay, so you didn't say anything.
Who else? Trot Nixon?
Trot Nixon did win a World Series with Boston. But not in 2007. Christopher Trotman Nixon. It was his full name.
Trot Nixon. That's a name that it's not come into my brain and out of my mouth in many
Former
years.
Trenton Thunder outfielder.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got.
I think I'm tapping out. I think that's all I can name. I'm trying to.
Not bad.
I know I should know who their center fielder was.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to the Rockies. Now, this was played in an American League ballpark, so there was a designated hitter who hit ninth and was the DH for that game. He had 3 plate appearances. He did draw a walk.
Seth Smith?
Not Seth Smith. I'm guessing you've probably had him on the podcast. Guessing you've had him on the podcast.
Not Spilly, is it? No.
Ryan Spilborghs was the DH in Game 1 of the 2007 World Series.
Interesting.
Throw out one reliever, and I'll give you the list after that. Take a guess.
A Rockies reliever who would have come into that game? Hergis? He was used in...
Matt Hergis would be correct. Franklin Morales, Ryan Spear, then it was Hergis, Jeremy Affeldt, and LaTroy Hawkins.
Jeremy Affeldt was on that team.
Now, for the Red Sox, at first base was converted third baseman. His nickname was, he featured prominently in Michael Lewis's book, Moneyball. His nickname was the Greek God of Walk.
Oh, I forgot about Kevin Youkilis.
Youkilis, that's right.
Okay.
Now, interestingly enough, David Ortiz was pinch hit for by... I'm not sure who he's a hitting coach with. He was with the Cubs, I think, at one point. He was a Rookie of the Year. Not many remember as a Rookie of the Year, but Eric Hinsky. He came in that game. Replacing Manny as a defensive replacement was his first name is Covelli, but you know him better as having a alliterative breakfast cereal sounding
Cocoa
name.
Crisp.
Cocoa Crisp. Covelli Lois Crisp. That's right. We also have in right field was a gentleman who was drafted, I believe, 2nd overall by the Phillies in 1998. but he did not sign. He played independent baseball with the St. Paul Saints, and thus he is forever hated in Philadelphia. That would be J.D. Drew.
J.D. Drew.
There are two shortstops in the game. One of them was an Alex, but it was Alex Cora, who would later go on to manage that team, of course, and then not manage that team. Julio Lugo was the starter in that game. And the second of the active players, I say active not physically, but I just don't think that Pedroia has retired, nor has this other player. I couldn't tell you what team he's on. He did finish up with the Yankees. I think he might just be a free agent getting paid about $20 million this year. That would be Jacoby Ellsbury.
Jacobs.
And out of the
Was
bullpen,
there, huh?
yeah, and out of the bullpen for the Red Sox was Mike Timlin, and the man who saved, I believe, 84 consecutive games without blowing a save, Eric Gagne.
Eric Gagne. I forgot he was on that Red Sox team.
I did too, to be honest.
I totally forgot that one. That's a good pull, because obviously Papelbon was their closer. That was past Gagne's prime, but that's pretty fascinating. And yeah, it sounds like, at least according to our source commenter Edmund Neeson, coming in with some news saying the players.
It's not undisclosed. It's not an undisclosed. We're just putting him out there. Sorry, man.
Sorry. We exposed our source on this one.
We're going 6'9" on that. Sorry.
Full text 6'9". Yeah. So he also says 35-5 against. Let's talk about that in just 1 second, because if we're going to get right back into the weeds, right back into the dirtiness of it a little bit, which it looks like we're going to have to do, first we got to remember how important it is to stay clean, smooth, fresh, and do so with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. That's right. You can make that sound without any of the ouching and owing and cutting, none of the nicks, none of those problems, just the clean, crisp sound of getting yourself nice and fresh with the Lawnmower 3.0. It is beautifully designed to reduce any nicks and tugs and pulling and none of that stuff. I've been using it regularly, never had an issue. You can get that LED light down there too, a little bit of extra comfort to make sure you're getting everything covered. And the best thing is honestly that once you're done with that, you don't just have a much cleaner situation downstairs. You can get yourself fresh and smell good, whether it's with the deodorant that comes in the Perfect Package 3.0, whether it's the spritzer that you get, a little de-chafing stuff, whatever it is, there's 3 different wonderfully smelling products that can make sure you are the best you that you can be. And believe me, you're going to feel better. Anybody who's paying special attention to the parts that you want special attention paid to, they're going to appreciate it. And you can make sure that everybody is in on the action. That's right, because you know Father's Day is coming up. It might feel weird, it might be bad, but you know what? You got to do what you got to do. Everyone's got to stay Manscaped. Everyone's got to be fresh and clean. No reason to be awkward about it. Feel good, feel fresh. Dad's got to feel fresh. You want to help him out. So make sure you use the code DNVR20 at manscaped.com. You'll get 20% off. You'll be able to get yourself feeling your absolute best, and you'll get free tripping, a little travel bag included for free in there. It really is the perfect package for your perfect package. And so, Patrick, it would seem, in all likelihood here, that the players have indeed rejected the proposal. And again, without knowing or hearing official news, if this is true, I would suspect that, again, it's based more on leverage than anything else. And this is where you start to lose people publicly when they go, "Can we just have baseball? That sounded fine." I anticipate, and we do want to wrap up here because we want to have full details before we weigh in heavily. But that's kind of what I suspect will be the initial reaction from people is, "Man, I thought we were so close. I thought we had a deal. Maybe Rob Manfred will step in and just implement a season before we get there." But what's your initial reaction to this?
Yeah, I know that there are several owners, according to Bob Nightingale, that are pleading with the commissioner to go ahead and implement a season. But it should also be noted that the commissioner can implement, a 50 to 60 game season, whatever he wants, or he could also cancel the season. That is in his power, and that would be awful for the image of baseball.
Yeah.
In such a major way. And I don't know if it's worse than what happened in '94 with the strike. I don't know. My initial instinct is to say, yeah, of course that's worse. We need baseball, more than ever. But maybe we don't. Maybe we shouldn't have baseball. Maybe we shouldn't have, a reminder of normalcy. Maybe we need to get through this. Maybe we just need to take this, this virus more seriously so that we can have everything back. You know. So I really don't.
I wish that was the reason the owner. I know what you're saying.
Right,
though,
exactly.
and
It's just a major black eye, if it comes down to something like that. So, man, and we might not even get that decision from Manfred today on Tuesday. Don't know what it's gonna take. He could wait to say, we're talking with health officials and in our 26, 27 cities around the United States to see what it's going to look like. Can we actually implement the spring training 2.0? I know part of the agreement that was voted on today, I think, allowed teams for up to 3 exhibition games of some type. I'm not sure if that meant teams coming in to Denver or the Rockies going elsewhere, or if that meant a team of college players. Just not clear entirely, because you can have exhibition games, you can have scrimmages, with your own players. So, yeah, there's still so much to unravel, and here we are, another day down the drain, and we still don't have an answer as to how many games we're going to have in 2020, or if there will even be a baseball season.
It's in Rob Manfred's hands now. It's up to him. So, yeah. And on that note, sorry, folks, that's just where we are. Hopefully we're back soon with an update. If not, just, everybody take care of each other out there. Take care of yourselves. Be safe. Be smart. Please continue to, follow us on all the social media stuff. Subscribe to the DNVR.com, to all of the different podcast feeds, including, if you're into it, hopefully I would appreciate it, the DNVR gaming feed. We're doing some fun conversations over there, and we've appreciated people who've jumped on board. We've got all kinds of fun stuff for sale at the DNVR merch store, and you can get some of that stuff without having to wait on shipping if you head down to the DNVR bar. And it's very safe down there. We've got stuff marked off. Everyone's following the rules. There's hand sanitizer provided. People are wearing masks when they're up from their tables. Everyone is social distancing. And the food and beer is delicious. So, and you can go buy a couple of shirts while you're down there too. Or get one of our masks. I wear my DNVR mask every time I go out, which isn't often, because it shouldn't be. But otherwise, just keep being awesome out there. Keep being baseball fans. I know it's tough right now, but the love for the game will never go out. This too shall pass, as they say. So
Well put. Well put.
For everyone out there, just keep being awesome. We'll keep being Patrick Lyons and Drew Creasman. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.